So hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Marketing Podcast. I'm Adam and I'm joined today by Jess and Will, two of our esteemed podsters who work in our PR department and our content department, respectively. So yeah, welcome Jess and Will.
Hi.
So today we're going to be doing a quick introduction, a quick talk about some of the key trends that we've noticed within the B2B marketing sphere, some of the key trends and elements that we've noticed around recently that we think is worth sharing with yourselves. So to start off with, Will is going to be introducing us to a couple that he's picked up. So Will.
Yeah, thanks. So I think what's quite interesting from a copywriting point of view, and some of the stuff that is creeping into what we do for B2B marketing is kind of seeing what's worked with our B2C counterparts and having the confidence to really bring that into the B2B world, because it can be done. There's this sort of traditional notion that B2B isn't as exciting because maybe HVAC systems aren't as sexy as like an iPhone, for example. But, we are cool. We talk about things that really affect and change people's everyday lives. So one of the really big things is trying to inject that kind of humanity into B2B content. You'll have noticed years ago, most marketing for B2B stuff was very product centric. It was this air conditioner, this copywriter, and people don't want that. Today's audiences want to connect with the real people. So it's showcasing those faces and those personalities behind brands. It's just a really good way to build trust and authenticity. And it sort of humanizes your brand as well, makes you more approachable. And let's be honest, it makes the marketing itself a lot more interesting. And I think along the same lines as well, obviously B2C marketing has seen a lot of success with video shorts. So we've seen on YouTube shorts, Instagram Reels, obviously TikTok as well. But that's another thing that B2B brands can really tap into to create this kind of compelling, shareable content. It can be short, it can be snappy, it can be interesting, and most importantly, it can be shareable as well.
Just on that one, one of the more interesting things from the strategic side is that there historically has been a thinking that B2B buyers, they can only be reached at trade events and they can only be reached at these things. But actually, really, if you look at any B2B buyer, they're just a person like anyone else. They're just, they're just a person. So we want to be reaching them where they are. And especially in a world with much more remote work, much more, far less people are going to events and things like that. Being able to reach them when they are on YouTube or when they're on TikTok or when they're on Instagram, you're still reaching the right people. You're just reaching them where they are, as opposed to fighting for an audience that's not necessarily there.
That's so true, and the kind of the nature of them, as you said, it's just perfect for grabbing those kind of busy professionals. A lot of the people we're talking to are busy, and we know that they're not reading every single email they get and every word of it. So I mean, it's sad to say as a copywriter, I don't want to do myself out of a job, but essentially people don't have time to read. So we need to make it short and snappy and catch that attention. And I think that kind of brings me on to one of the last trends I was looking at, and that's really quality over quantity. I think we've made a mistake in B2B in the past, as we were kind of getting used to what the internet and social means for us, of just we have to post all the time. And obviously, you have to keep your networks up to date. You have to keep websites full of content, but it shouldn't just be for the sake of it. We have to post 4 times a week because otherwise it's going to be empty. It really has to add value, and that doesn't mean you have to post less often. It just means that you have to, like you said, everything has to have a purpose and really add value, and that's something, again, that B2B can do and should have the confidence to do. And as copywriters, it's our job to make each of those posts interesting and relevant.
Absolutely. No. And that's one of the things, we see so much terrible copy in the market. And, one of the things that really has sort of captured everyone's attention recently has been around, Chat GPT and HubSpot Content Assistant and, Grammarly Go and all of these tools that are coming around who, yes, can technically write some copy for you, but they're enabling marketers to create lots of not great copy as opposed to, less really high quality copy, which actually converts. So yeah, it's really interesting to sort of see that shift.
That's absolutely right. And like you said, but one thing that can be useful, I sort of deliberately didn't mention AI, just because I think it's the trend of the year that everyone's been talking about. But they can be very useful copywriting assistants. Certainly us at the Marketing Pod wouldn't use it to literally write our copy, but I think as we discussed before, they're good as sort of thought starters to help with the research, that kind of thing. So there is a way that I think the copywriter of the future doesn't have to worry necessarily about losing their job, but maybe if they don't know how to use these tools correctly, it'll put them at a disadvantage. Yeah, and I think that's all I had for sort of the recent copywriting trends. But Jess, I know you've got a few things to say from the PR side of things, so I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, I mean, I think PR and content, they do really go hand in hand with each other. And a lot of the points that you were making, Will, about the volume of content that people are consuming. I read a stat that people are reading like 300 feet of content every day. So you think there's so much on people's phones that, as you say, they need to have short, snappy things that are going to strike their attention. And your point as well about, quality over quantity, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Will, where you just kind of say, there can be that pressure for businesses to want to get things out quickly. And yes, there are things that are time sensitive, but really having something that adds value, that offers a unique, thought or opinion on a topical issue is actually a lot more valuable than just getting anything out online. Which brings me to my first sort of trend of PR is about having data-driven stories. So it's always been something that we've seen, in the BBC and things like that, where they want hard facts to prove a story. But that's ever more prominent now with so much fake news going on. And recently in the news, there was a energy report that was actually pulled the other week because the facts were actually incorrect. So a think tank, Civitas, published a report projecting the cost to get the UK to net zero. And they projected it to be about 4.5 trillion. And that was grossly overestimated. And the report was pulled. And now they have to go back and redo it. So obviously not a great piece of PR there for that think tank. So really the trend for PR is just make sure you have the data, make sure your facts are correct before you publish anything. Don't rush to the finishing line because it won't serve you well in the long run.
So in a world where it's getting more and more tricky to obtain the sort of provenance of something, to understand where it really came from, we live in a world now where AI can be generating content and facts, and where images can be sort of morphed together from different images and pieces in there. It's becoming really, really important to check your facts on your marketing, but also check your internal facts. We see a lot of claims made by businesses because they've taken a statistic that's been shared internally but not verified, and we've seen them becoming unstuck with it because obviously it turns out to not be true, or maybe sort of be not entirely true.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's not all doom and gloom. If you do end up putting something out there that was incorrect, or if you've found yourself in the firing line of a bit of bad press, I know people say there's no such thing as bad press, but that's a grey area. But I think as long as you've got a really effective communication plan in place, if something like this does happen where you are caught out, making sure that you hold up your hands, you own that mistake, you highlight what went wrong and why it went wrong, but more importantly, how you're going to fix it. What procedures are you going to put into place to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And also as well, to come back, a week, a month, a year down the line to demonstrate how you've made those improvements. So, if as a business, as I say, if you do find yourself under criticism from the media or from a customer, even just a negative review online, it's making sure you're addressing that in a timely manner and demonstrating how you're going to resolve that issue. That's what people want to see. You don't have to be perfect as a company, but you have to be demonstrating progress. And I think that's going to be the biggest trend in PR, and it is accountability, authenticity, and showing that you're growing, you're developing, we're all figuring it out together. So yeah, honesty is really the best policy there.
So that's all we got time for this week, and thank you very much for both of you for joining today's podcast. If you like our podcast, if you're enjoying the content you're hearing, then please remember to subscribe using your favorite podcast app. And if you're in one that supports it, please leave us a review. It really does help the show. So thanks, everyone.